1, 2, check, check, check. 1, 2. All right, you're speaking first, so you stand here. We'll have her stand right next to you. Beth, I'll have you stand on the other side so there's you.
Can these get
So you can stand on one side, and then Rep. Wynn, you can stand on the other side. Senator Kavanaugh,
Should
stand
we
on this
be
side.
like bookends?
Yes, yes. And then one each other. Anyone with signs can stand on the sides of the members.
Anybody stand in front of me? I'll still see.
Check 1 2, check 1 2, check.
You can stand on either side of this one.
Are we good? Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Before I start my prepared remarks, I would like to inform everyone this was just released per the Phoenix Police Department, Form 4. The accused has been charged with sexual assault F2 as well as kidnap F2. The probable cause statement says this: on November 19th, 2025, at approximately 12:21 hours, an unknown male asked a female student to go into a classroom, touched her, pulled down her pants. The victim, a 10-year-old female, participated in a dedicated forensic interview at Child Help Children's Center at approximately 1500 hours. The victim disclosed that an unknown black male was on school campus and told her that he was a doctor who needed to perform tests. The defendant took the victim into an empty classroom, sat her on the floor, pulled her pants down, and performed oral sex on the 10-year-old little girl. The defendant attempted to pull down his own pants, and the victim pushed him, telling him to stop. Senator Werner, please come join us. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Senator Janae Shamp, and I represent Legislative District 29 in the West Valley. To the media, lawmakers, and every Arizonan watching, this is not just another press conference. This is a pivotal moment because today we're confronting a system that failed to do the one thing that it is tasked with, and that is to protect our children. I'm going to be blunt because, quite frankly, sugarcoating is how we got here. The system failed. And when a child pays the price, excuses are not acceptable. We are dealing with a convicted sex offender, someone who broke probation again and again and again, who snuck into an elementary school and is now accused of sexually assaulting a 10-year-old little girl. This individual had already been convicted in 2021 for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old with autism. He was assigned only a level 2 registered sex offender at the time. This is all while being on probation, federal probation, where he was offered a plea deal from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, probation for the lowest possible charges, a gentle tap on the wrist, given to a child predator who pled guilty to sexual conduct with a minor and who was allegedly involved with human smuggling across our southern border. Since 2021, he violated probation 4 times. 4 times he showed us exactly who he was. 4 times the system looked away. 4 times the public was told, he'll be fine. And then just days after being reinstated to the intensive probation supervision for his 4th violation, he was able to sneak into a school building, undetected, unchecked, unchallenged, where he pretended to be a doctor and allegedly lured this 10-year-old little girl into an empty classroom. That little girl, God bless her, if she ever feels safe again. His home was 2.1 miles from that campus. This was not an accident. This was not unpredictable. This was a result of a justice system that had forgotten its first duty, public safety before offender sympathy. So yes, we are asking every hard question. Why was this man still on probation? Why were repeated violations met with leniency? Why were warning signs ignored until a child was hurt? Again, parents deserve more than bureaucratic answers. Victims deserve more from the system that's established. Arizona deserves a system that actually enforces the law. That is why in the upcoming legislative session, this will be a top priority for me. No more passive supervision for these predators. No more guessing games, no more loopholes. That sexual deviants, and make no bones about it, these are deviants. No more capability for them to slip through any loopholes. We're going to restore common sense. We're going to restore accountability. And we're going to restore the principle that protecting children is non-negotiable. We will pursue reforms that ensure uniform, tough, mandatory responses to violations, public reporting with no secrecy. You hurt a child, you do not get to hide anymore. Independent oversight of high-risk offenders, suspensions, supervisions, this is non-negotiable. A system where predators lose rights before children lose safety, that's a system that we are going to ensure is in place for every Arizona citizen. Let me be perfectly clear. We will not tolerate a justice system that coddles offenders while families pay the price. We will not allow dangerous individuals to be given chance after chance after chance. We will not accept the culture of leniency that allowed this to happen. Because quite frankly, there should be no culture of leniency when it comes to the molestation and sexual assault of the children of the state of Arizona. Amen. End. This is the line. This is the moment that we say no more. And to the lawmakers that are ready to stand with me, to the law enforcement that I know is ready to act, and to the families across this state demanding real change, thank you. Your voices are being heard, and we are unified. I'm ready to champion bold, unapologetic reforms that prioritize Arizona families. However, I believe it's crucial to hold accountable and call for the termination of the probation officers, the probation officer supervisors, and anyone else that was involved in allowing this repeat offender to act as a predator, strike again, and rob an innocent child. She will no longer have a normal life. That's unacceptable. We will fix this. We will rebuild the accountability. We will protect Arizona's children with strength, clarity, and conviction that they deserve. And before we continue with our next speaker, I would like to take this moment to offer our heartfelt prayers for that brave little girl, her family, and her community. And I request that all the prayer warriors out there put them in your prayers, that they may find some comfort in these horrific times. Thank you. We will be answering questions at the end. Senator Carroll, would you like to come join us up here while we move on to the next speaker? And with that, I'm going to pass the microphones over to Kaylee Kozak.
My name is Kaylee Kozak. I am most notably known for being the namesake of Kaylee's Law, which originated in Arizona. I stand here today completely shattered by the systematic failures that allowed an innocent little girl to be violated. This is not just about this one man's heinous acts. It is about the system that failed over and over and over again. This man, a Liberian citizen who was granted permanent residency in the United States, has been charged with some of the most heinous crimes, both federally and locally. He has served minimal time behind bars due to plea deals with lesser charges and has been able to get away with continuous violations while on probation. Days after his most recent release for violating probation, he bypassed safety measures at a Phoenix elementary school and gained access to a 10-year-old girl. He committed unspeakable acts. And as the senator said, her life will never be the same. You all have asked, how did this happen? It happened because the system has allowed it. This could have been prevented in 2019 if federal prosecutors had pursued the human trafficking charge and actually deported him. It could have been prevented in 2021 if the Maricopa County Attorney's Office hadn't reduced his charges. Instead, they gave him less jail time and more probation time, which in this state is a complete joke. Under ARS 12270, it appears that probation departments are financially incentivized to keep offenders out of prison. They define their own success metrics, and oversight from the Board of Supervisors is only periodic, whatever periodic means. By ignoring this offender's repeated violations, the probation department received taxpayer dollars for keeping him out of prison, all while contradicting their mission to enhance community safety through service, accountability, and influencing change. This corruption runs deep. Officials who claim to be tough on crime in Arizona are the same exact ones allowing plea deals that minimize the severity of these crimes and put our communities in danger. They promise things like lifetime probation, but then probation is the very first in line to support offenders in getting off. Why? Because it benefits their metrics and their funding. This is unacceptable, it's inexcusable, and it's disgusting. We don't need to ask how this happened. We know. From the first conviction in 2019 to the unlocked school door, every failure between this system has failed. And an innocent 10-year-old girl paid the price. She went to school that morning and her parents got a phone call, a devastating phone call. And she will forever be impacted by what has happened to her because of these failures. To the family whose lives have been forever changed, I am so deeply sorry. As a victim of childhood sexual abuse, who was also assaulted on school grounds, my heart aches for you and for your precious daughter who did not deserve this. The system does not prioritize victims, and it never has. 20 years later, I am still fighting the exact system that they are now entering. Against probation, against my abuser, and against the lies that I was told when I was a child. I say this to this family because I need you to know that I am not only fighting for myself, but I am also now fighting for your precious little girl. I will do everything that I can to ensure that she never has to endure any more pain than she has already suffered at the hands of these inexcusable failures. If you see this, know that I'm here for you, and I am available to help you with anything that you may need. This is bigger than this one specific case. This is about a system that has failed victims and Arizonans for far too long. Today, we are demanding transparency, accountability, and change. And to anyone who has suffered at the hands of this flawed system, know that we are here fighting for you, and we will never stop fighting for you because you still matter. Thank you for the opportunity, and I will be happy to take questions after.
Representative Wen, would you like to?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kwang Nguyen, Legislative District 1, also Chairman of Judiciary Committee. Arizona's current sex offender probation system is too often inconsistent, under-supervised, and ill-equipped to protect the public. When offenders receive probation, instead of meaningful custody or strict enforceable supervision, the burden shifts to communities that expect real accountability, strengthening probation standard through tighter monitoring, zero tolerance for violation, and I mean zero tolerance for violation, longer supervision windows, and mandatory treatment with measurable compliance will close the dangerous gaps to allow high-risk offenders to slip through the system, as you can see what happened today. Reforming sex offender probation isn't about being harsher. It's about restoring public trust, prioritizing victims, and ensuring that predators are never given a second chance to harm Arizona children. I also want to be clear that probation should not be an excuse to save money, because the cost of recidivism is quite costly, especially if the victim is your child. As chairman of House Judiciary Committee, I will work with Senator Shamp to investigate, hear that clearly, investigate and explore solution. Thank you.
Beth Golden, as many of you know, I retired from the Maricopa County Adult Probation Department 3 years ago. Thank you, Senator Shamp, for inviting me to speak today. I began working in probation shortly after high school. While in college at ASU, my job was interviewing individuals who were awaiting sentencing and working closely with senior probation officers at the time who spent years in the field. And it was during that time I fell in love with this profession. For me, probation was the perfect blend of law enforcement and social work. And what I learned over 24 years is that you cannot be effective in this field without both. You must be ready every day to balance accountability and rehabilitation. After college, I was promoted again, and my first caseload as a probation officer was supervising 60 to 70 individuals convicted of sex crimes: rape, child molestation, voyeurism, bestiality, you name it. What kept me up at night wasn't the crimes themselves, it was the fear of missing something that could lead to another victim being created. That fear is what made me work harder than I ever had, because when you supervise high-risk offenders, you carry the safety of the community with you every day. I believe in rehabilitation. People can change, not everyone, but they can change when they are supervised, supported, and held accountable. Ignoring behavior is not compassion, it's negligence. I have had individuals thank me for sending them back to prison because they knew if they were allowed to remain in the community, they would continue to harm others. Accountability is a part of rehabilitation and evidence-based practices. When I started in this field, probation here in Arizona was proactive. Officers were encouraged to be in the field, meeting with clients, talking to families, coordinating with treatment, and addressing risk before it turned to harm. Over the years, that changed. The people stopped being the priority, the numbers did. Instead of enforcing violations, officers and supervisors were discouraged from filing petitions because it made the stats look bad. And today we're here because the system failed again. This time it failed a 10-year-old girl, and my heart is with her and her family. No one on sex offender probation should be allowed to miss months of treatment and repeatedly violate conditions. Probation is a suspended sentence and a privilege, not a right. If we want transparency, then we need to start measuring success the right way, not by how many people complete probation, because probation itself controls that outcome. We need to measure recidivism, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years after discharge. That tells us whether the system is protecting Arizona families. I look forward to working with Senator Shamp and members of the legislature to restore proactive supervision, accountability, and to bring transparency to probation. And Arizona families deserve nothing less. Thank you.
All right, we'll take questions of any of the four speakers. I don't know if, Kim, you want to call people out, or if you guys just want to raise your hand and I'll point to you.
What I'm wondering is, what can the legislature do on this issue? Probation is in the courts, the judicial branch. You guys are the executive branch. What can you do legislatively this next session to address that? Is there any talk of bringing it under your branch?
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. When we're talking about moving, that's a bigger issue. You know, there's this, I'm trying to find the, here it is. You know, Kaylee spoke to it. There's very specific in, under, let's see, this is 12-270 ARS. It looks like it is J. Each county board of supervisors shall periodically Periodically is not a word that should ever be in law as far as statutes, as far as I'm concerned. We don't use periodically in healthcare. I don't know why we would use it in law. If it's not defined, it's not done, right? So that's the first place that I'm gonna start. I've already reached out to the Board of Supervisors, already have meetings set up. That is definitely a route we're gonna go. But we're also going to spend the time to really kind of dive in and break it down. We have the Sex Offender Management Board created, which Beth is the chairwoman of. Thank you to Senator Shauna Bullock for creating that and fighting so hard for the last 2 sessions, because these laws need overhauled completely. As we started making changes, it became very apparent that it's patchworked. It's very patchworked. As far as I'm concerned, this guy should have never been considered a level 2. But that's decided in probation based off of a questionnaire that's 19 questions long, and it hasn't been reformed since 2002. SORNA, Sex Offender Registry Notification Act, we fail. In the state of Arizona, we are failing 8 out of 11 categories right now. So there's lots of places for reform. It's just gonna take a holistic approach because there's so many different aspects included. Because it is housed under the judicial branch, but it does interact with the legislative branch. So we've got to figure that out. And I would think that we're all gonna be very willing to work together.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about this particular situation. For example, whenever I go to a school to cover a story, things are just airtight. There are gates there that you have to go through the, administrative office first. I mean, there's just a lot of layers there. And I just wonder if maybe if you might first explore just what happened, what were the little openings that he was able to, get inside and somehow elude that front.
So I actually would like to spend the time on the large gaping loopholes these guys are walking through versus going after one individual human being that forgot to lock a door.
Is that the way it was?
It was a door that was left unlocked. It wasn't supposed to be unlocked. A tardy child went through it. He snuck in behind. How are we going to hold one individual human being responsible when our system has created this problem? He should have never been on the streets. He shouldn't have been a level 2 in the first place. He shouldn't have been able to be released. He was released 4 days before he assaulted this little girl. 4 days. He has a massive history. I want to know why he was considered level 2 and allowed to have probation in the first place. And then what does intensive probation mean? Obviously, he was not being supervised intensely. He lived 2.1 miles away from a school he attended earlier in his life. If that doesn't give him the capability to know his surroundings, I don't know what does. That's where the blame needs to be.
Any additional questions?
I appreciate everyone in this room today. We have got a war going on, a war of innocence. And one thing that I look at, and I've talked at many different locations, and I've felt that this is something that we might, on a street level, fathers, men, need to be active in the school systems, to be there on property, to be trading off, rotating in and out, to be able to be hands-on on campus, armed and ready, trained, established. And I think that and we want to be able to bow down to your work. And thank you so much for what we can do. Legislate to where we, as the fathers, I don't have any school-age children any longer, but that don't mean anything.
Amen. Yeah.
Being as a prayer warrior, we need to establish that premise back in America.
I don't disagree with you, sir. Thank you for saying that. I do believe that we need to, our community, we need more community, less government. That is what I believe personally. But in this instance, the protection of our children has placed on the government. Our job in the government is to provide infrastructure and to protect our citizens. We are failing in this category immensely. And I don't disagree. And that is definitely something that we're going to talk about, how we can help do that. But I urge all citizens of this state to bring your communities together, whether it's dad groups or church groups, come together and talk about it. Reach out to your school boards, reach out to people and actually have conversations about what we can do as a community. But number one, we need to pray for this family and this community. Thank you very much for your question. Yes, sir.
Questions? You spoke about, obviously individuals like this, repeat sex offenders, shouldn't be on the streets as it is. But in this case specifically, a lot of these parents in this district and at this school specifically that I talked to, they drop their kids off at school to be safe. So I know we don't want to speak, or you don't want to speak about, one person getting in, but school safety in general, parents want to drop their kids off at school in the morning and know that they're protected there.
Well, you're right. As long as we continue to have a society that allows for this kind of deviant behavior because we don't act as aggressively as we should, absolutely, the school is the last defense for safety. I'm the kid that went to school for safety. That was my safe place. It's horrific that this happened, but one individual human being making a mistake, we're not going after that one individual human being. I'm here to call for system reform so that if someone a human individual makes a mistake, there isn't a child who suffers the rest of her life from that. So the onus is on the system itself.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
So can the legislature address mandatory minimum jail time or penalties for violating probation? I mean, are these specific things that can be addressed?
Absolutely. Those are things that we've been addressing. Kaylee and I and Beth and actually all three of us. I don't know if you've heard about dangerous crimes against children, and this man will be charged under that. I don't know if you've heard about the natural life in prison for anyone that causes bodily injury to someone a child 12 or under. Like, we are working. It's slow going, unfortunately, and this case has proven that the time for slow work is over. We all need to come together, and this needs to be reformed, and reformed now. Another child should not be hurt because of this system.
Senator Shamp, Kaylee wanted to add something.
Please.
Thank you for your question, and I'm confident in saying that Beth and I are on the same page about this. We can have mandatory minimums all day long. If our prosecutors who are telling the communities, we have harsh penalties on the books, we have good laws in place, are allowing these types of people to plead down to lesser charges, those laws mean nothing. So please understand that when you hear these things or you go read a statute, that the prosecutors have the authority to plead these cases down. They can plead them down to attempted, they can plead them down to lesser felonies. And that is when the mandatory minimums go out the window, because that original charge that had a mandatory minimum of 20 years, for example, it's now no longer relevant and no longer something that can happen because they have allowed these offenders to plead down so drastically. And then they give them probation to make it sound like they're actually doing something, and then they help them to get off probation.
So just in your experience, what are you seeing? Are they saying that they're overwhelmed by the number of cases that they have, and that's why they're pleading?
Is that an acceptable excuse?
Of course not, but I'm just wondering what you're hearing from prosecutors and the county attorney's office as to why they're playing down so many of these cases.
I don't know, I can't speak for you, Kaylee, but I don't think that there is an excuse. There's not an excuse that you can justify that this is happening, because it's not like it's one time. What about the hiker who was raped and murdered last year? What about Tyler, Officer Movado? These criminals are on the street and they are raping, murdering, shooting our police officers. We have a systemic problem. This isn't just one time. This just happens to be a 10-year-old little girl in school. So, there's a lot of things that people don't understand. Did you know that they can plead to lifetime probation, and after a certain period of time, every third Friday of the month, they can go down to Superior Court and they can make a plea to have it lifted. So someone who actually accepted a lifetime probation as part of their plea, 8-9 years later, scot-free. And for those that don't reform, they reoffend.
Senator, one thing I've wondered as I was reviewing his entire case file, I encourage everyone to do so because there's a lot of questions there. Have you asked yourself, what's the point of having probation conditions if you're not going to follow them? Namely, go to mental health counseling, go to sexual counseling, not own a smartphone, not contact the victim you just previously sexually assaulted. What's the point?
What
Have
is
you
the
asked
point?
yourself that?
Oh, yes, actually, in a very loud voice with a lot of words I can't use in this room. What is the point? You're right, because this guy, 22 times he didn't show up for mandatory therapy. He had a smartphone. He was why is this okay? Why was he let out of jail and allowed to even walk the streets in our communities to be able to do this to this little girl? It's a great question, but I mean, I want to know the answers. I can ask questions all day long. I want to know what the answers are. What is probation going to do about it? What is the district attorney going to do about it? What are we going to do legislatively to come together and fix this problem? Because not one more child, not one more on my watch. This is absolutely reprehensible.
Any additional questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, you had 3 bills around these topics become law over the past 2 legislative sessions. Do you see future success in the next session?
Do I feel, for the sake of our children, God, I hope so. I'm not ever going to stop fighting this fight. I mean, those of you, any of you that have seen any of my videos or posts, I am here to make pedophiles' lives hell, and I will make no apologies for it. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate your time today, especially on such a horrific topic. Thank you.